Call to order the Tuesday, January 2nd, regular town council meeting. First thing we're going to do is start with the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Carl Kincaid.
Present.
Connie Reed.
Here.
Susie Merle.
Here.
Brian Hill.
Here.
Doug Glover.
Here.
Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of December 5th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make that motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting minutes are on record. Next is our public comments. We have one on here, Mike McCardle.
I hate to be a pain in the ass every month. I just want to talk about the budget. I started a spreadsheet because the numbers weren't making any sense to me. And after the last meeting, none of the numbers add up, or most of the numbers don't add up. Probably because the October report had lots of zeros. So, if anyone's going to follow this or make any sense of it, we need current and complete numbers. I mean, we're halfway through the budget, almost. And I don't know if anybody knows where we really are. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. And the other thing is, we've already spent $25,000 on a planner, $15,000 on the park, and we don't know where we're at. I mean, it just doesn't seem like real good budgeting to me. And then, I got like 2 or 3 questions. Like the general fund, what's the actual balance? Does anybody know? The exact balance and the date of that balance? That interest-bearing account, what's the balance of that? It's the end of the year. The 31st is a perfect day to write down the balances and just get everything in order. And last month, not, I guess the October paperwork or whatever it was, we had collected $2,000 in property taxes. I mean, that's not very much since July. And I know that bills come out in October, but we should have a pretty good idea when we're getting the money. You got tax history, all that kind of stuff. And that's it. But we need to get the numbers in a timely basis. The guy doing a spreadsheet and then finding out none of it adds up sucks. And that's it.
Thank you. Excuse me. Next, we're going to have a public hearing for the second and final reading of the ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the town of White Bluff by rezoning map 096 parcel 37.07 on 1228 Taylortown Road from R1 low density to R2 medium density zoning district. Closing the council meeting and opening the public hearing. Is there anyone that wants to speak for or against this? Closing the public hearing and reopening the council meeting. Excuse me. Under communication from the mayor, I'm just gonna read this because really that's all the information we have for it is FEMA, that's the Small Business Administration, right? Red Cross, the resources are all available at the White Bluff Bid Center to the Dixon County residents that were affected by the late December storms. And it's not, you don't have to live in the White Bluff, I mean, it's anybody in our county that can come there and apply for it. And if you know somebody that was affected, encourage them to do it. Because even if they turn it down the first time, they're usually just asking for something. And they just need to, and I'm just repeating what I heard on the news, but they're asking for something and they just need you to get it back to them. So that they can help them. And it, you know, the way that things look, any little bit will help them. So encourage anybody you know to go and try and get this assistance. Under budget and finance, we're going to review the November financial statement.
Okay, like I told you all Thursday night, property taxes does not come due current year to November the 1st. They are sent out in the 20th or 25th of October. So that's the reason why we only just got $2,700 in October. In November, you'll see we got more. It's then it's up to $59,782. And right now, in December, I would say it'd be probably about $300,000. So that's exactly the reason why property taxes on the financial report, you know, is what it is.
When's the is it February 1st, the deadline that you have to
The
pay?
deadline is February 29th.
29th, sorry.
Yeah, but I was late here.
Yeah, right.
And also, Stephanie asked me, and I think it should be on here. Tell you to put it on here. Attached to that financial report, Stephanie, is September, October, and November of our investment fund. And the reason I waited to see if the December was posted yet, and it is not. So if it's in December, it's not on there. That's the reason why y'all haven't gotten anything yet. So I thought at, you know, the end of the year. If you got any questions about it.
So it's roughly $24,000 in interest
So far, and this is in 3 months. Mhm.
Is this the grant money we had, or is this, does it include some of the general?
It includes grant money and some of it. We were advised by the auditor that the state is starting to frown on cities that carry the heavy fund balance without putting it in investment. So part of that is including part of our fund balance too.
So I do have a point just to clarify. When we were discussing this as a council, we had asked if it was just the grant money that we were investing, and that's what we were told.
Yeah.
But it was not that. And
No, it's one, and I spoke wrong when I said that. Because I thought the grant money is $1,083,000 something dollars, and I spoke wrong when I said that.
So, I mean, obviously we're making interest, and I'm sure everyone's happy about that. But again, just to clarify, this is an account that it's not protected as far as like FDI might be insured.
But they, you know, assure me that it is, it's safe. I think that's what, I'm pretty, you know, just about all your cities, this is what they do, because it's a local government investment pool.
Yeah, it's not FDIC insured.
No.
We did clarify that, but with the way it's structured, if it were to fail, we have bigger problems.
Yeah.
Very conservative.
Well, it's just because it's government based, like, it's like.
It's with the Department of Treasury. State Department.
Without being FDIC insured, so you do not have that protection, but that comes from a fund as well.
Right now, we started out at 5.33% a month, and now it's gone up to 5.4.
Well, what determines that?
I really don't know, other than, it's just according to how the market is, you know, the investment market.
Yeah, it's just saying what the return is, and it's floated up, the average has gone from 5, whatever, to 5.4,
Yeah.
so it could go back down.
I think we were given some documents back when we first discussed this, and it told you, like, how it's invested, the local government investment pool, like how it's allocated. I would have to go back and read that, because I don't remember, but I think it's on that handout.
Right.
Yeah, if my memory serves, I believe your initial expectation was around 4%. The fact that we're at 5.4 is.
Yeah, I think we started out at 5.33.
Good.
But we're not locked in at a rate. We have it's whatever the market's at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
which is good.
So it's liquid and.
Because they don't like for us to have a lot of money in a checking account. So, right now, it's hard to say. I mean, you've got checks that haven't cleared yet, but we've probably got about $560,000 right now in our checking account.
I take that.
Then the rest of it is in investment book. And we're gonna have to start taking some of this money out because the bill for the ARPA grant is gonna be coming out too. We're already starting to pay engineering fees. Our grant coordinator that handles it, we pay them.
So now that we have the community development
That's
block
it.
grant, that's going to probably extend the timeline of when it starts construction of the project, possibly.
Yes.
Okay. So the majority of the funds will stay in this account, minus some of the engineering bills.
Yeah, it's just front-end expenses right
Yeah.
now, the engineering and the, like, grant administration and that kind of thing.
Okay. So we could then kind of somewhat estimate if we're making a certain amount per month in interest,
Mm-hmm.
we could kind of estimate it's going to be the same or close to that if we're not taking out a whole lot for engineering fees. Is that correct?
Yeah, right now, I don't think I've paid, like, maybe 20,000, maybe it's that much, or 24, maybe it's 24. I just paid a bill.
Okay.
So, and then
It's
probably
not
about,
gonna be a lot right now.
not right, maybe about 6,000 in grant administration fees.
Any more questions on the financial statement?
And I always still want to add that this financial statement is, it's not a spreadsheet that I put together, it is generated. All the bookwork is done in FlexGen, which is local government corporation. All the receipting, property tax, payroll, and then it integrates over into NextGen. And that's where the financial, and that's all we do is pull reports from that. We don't do spreadsheets, no spreadsheets.
I have a few in-depth questions, but I think it would be best held to just one-on-one later on this week if you would mind.
You are.
I do have some more in-depth questions, but I think it would be
Okay.
best held to just on a one-on-one. I would take up this whole meeting.
You're saying you want to bother her?
Yeah,
more
first
business?
thing.
Yes, I do, yes, that's exactly.
You better
right.
make an appointment.
I will make
Need you.
I will make an
We'll need
appointment.
you.
Anything else?
And I just wanted to ask, because we know that some revenue comes in on a quarterly basis. Is it the standard, is it like March, June?
Yes. Yes,
September?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The TDA, money we get from them comes in twice a year, and that's in this December and June.
I know you've told us before, but when, how often does the cable money come in?
It comes in twice a year. Mhm.
Okay. Anything else on the financial statement? Okay. Excuse me. We'll move on down to codes and permits. We're going to consider on second and final reading an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the town of White Bluff by rezoning map 096, parcel 3707, and 1228 Taylortown Road from R1 to R2 zoning district. This passed on first reading last month. We had our public hearing just a little while ago, and no one spoke on it. Do I have a motion to approve on second and final reading?
I make that motion to approve on second final reading.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on it? Okay, all in favor say aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, we had 3 aye and 1 no, is that right? Okay, motion passed. Okay, I'm gonna be the mayor on this one now. I'm not reading all these. Consider on first reading an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the town of White Bluff by rezoning the following parcels, and 3 of them are going from C1 to C2. 3 of them are going from R3 to C2. Do I have a motion to approve on first reading?
Madam Chair, if I may, just before a motion is
Okay.
made, these can be considered together because remember the contingency that the town planner brought up that for this is that in order for it to be rezoned, they have to consolidate all the parcels. So we only want one zoning ordinance on this. So if it is the will of the council to approve basically parcels 2, 3, 4, 11, 12, and 13 to C2, contingent upon those 6 parcels being consolidated into one. That would be the motion we would ask for if it's in favor.
Okay.
I will make that motion as dictated by council.
I will second.
Okay. Any discussion on this?
I would like a definition of C2.
Highway commercial.
It is with the ability to put residential above if you so desire, like they do in the church. So you do your commercial on the bottom floor, if I'm correct, and your residential on the top. Right. It just kind of gives you a more broad commercial usage. Is there an official definition handy?
It's in our zone.
Super cool.
Is there any concern about this being C2 and it also being in our core business district area?
We kind of look at core as red light to red light, and this is outside that.
Well, it's actually kind of falling in the middle of the red light. That's why I was asking if there was any concern about it being C2 as opposed to C1.
We don't, staff doesn't have a concern about
Okay.
that.
I think Amanda on Thursday said that she had no issues with it either.
My assumption is that, because I don't know what this would become, but it's right there at that intersection, that if it turns into something highly commercialized, that we would have to analyze the red light at that point, I'm assuming.
And then somebody just contact the stay.
Again, the way this would typically work on a state highway, at certain approval stages, there could be a condition that they have to apply for a warrant. That doesn't mean that TDOT's going to grant them that, but we can make them at least go through all the steps and leave it up to TDOT. I have the C2 definition if you want me to just read it.
Thank you. I was good.
I beat you.
C2 Highway Commercial District. The district is designed to provide adequate space and appropriate locations for uses which serve the needs of the motoring public, automobile and other vehicular service establishments, transient sleeping accommodations, and eating and drinking establishments primarily characterize this district. In addition, commercial trade and service uses are permitted if necessary to serve the recurring needs of persons frequenting these districts. Community facilities and utilities necessary to serve these districts or necessary for the general community welfare are also permitted. Bulk limitations required of uses in these districts in part are designed to maximize compatibility with lesser intense use of land or building in proximate residential districts. Such districts should be situated in clustered development patterns and not patterns of stripped commercial development. Mixed-use buildings which primarily are used commercially but include residential habitation above or behind commercial activities are acceptable developments. And then you get into the various community facility activities, the commercial activities, and the residential activities sections under C2 in the zoning ordinance.
So if this gets zoned C2, is there an additional application for residential, or is it just?
Well, they would have to come in with their normal plans. If you're referring to a special exception that they have to come in and ask for, that gets into
manufacturing, limited, but there's some manufacturing activities that have to come in for a special exception. Agricultural resources production and extractive activities such as plant and forest nurseries, and some commercial activities, construction, sales and services, group assembly, indoor ranges, and firearm training facilities.
Those have to come in under special exceptions with usually a list of conditions imposed by the Board of Zoning Appeals.
So when they present their plan, is that being presented to just the Planning Commission, or will that come back to the council?
It's not a PUD, so it would come back to council.
So my thought though is that if the fear is that, oh, all they're going to do is put commercial on the front and high density residential in the back, they already have that zoning to do that. If they were just going to cram a bunch of high density residential, they already have 3 R3s behind it, they can combine that and do that already. So my assumption, and be that it is an assumption, is I'm assuming that if they're, by them asking to remove the R3, they're actually trying to do something different.
Yeah, because you could just zone the front C1 and then just slam the houses to the back. It's already got the zoning.
It's already got the zoning.
Well, it's C1 in the front already.
Yeah.
So they're pretty well, I mean, they could.
It's C1 front, R3 back.
My understanding from just what I've gathered is that they want to do commercial buildings with the opportunity to put residential above if it's desirable, which I like because it gives you some room. If you've got a business that is a little questionable, you can put that, apartment up top and make the payment, I guess.
Personally, that's more attractive to me than having that R3 back behind.
I agree.
That's my personal opinion.
I will also add the front setback's 50 feet, the rear setback's 20 on C2, and while it's 10 feet on the side, if it's next to a residential, it actually has to have the side setback of that residential district that it's neighboring. So it gets pretty pushed in there. Now we have those buffering requirements to add on top of it.
One thing that may help is, and you have this in your packet, but just a description of what the applicant has said to us. The applicant has expressed a desire on the submitted request for action to develop these lots as a comprehensive mixed-use project because of that stated intent and the consolidation of the parcels mentioned above, which would be almost 5 acres in size. Staff recommends the rezoning request contingent upon the consolidation of the parcels, and that's what Andrew was mentioning. Staff's recommendation to the Planning Commission and White Rock Town Council is approval of the rezoning request contingent on consolidating the above parcels.
And Jeff, am I correct in that the two parcels to its west are already C2?
Correct, yes.
Is the applicant going to run into any problems consolidating this with it having multiple houses on the current lot?
I don't have an answer for, I don't think so, but we'd have to I don't know how many houses are on the lot.
There's two on Church Street.
Okay.
So what it would do is just become non-conforming. And then, so his plan with that, just so you understand, he's renovating those houses right now because he's gonna do short-term, he's gonna do rental in there until he gets everything ready to go, and then eventually those will be taken down.
And to add to what Jeff said, so if it's going to be non-conforming, which is permitted, they wouldn't be able to get a building permit
Right.
on the site. They're maxed out on houses unless they come in with a plan that's under C2.
I think the non-conforming part answers my question. I know there's, on the front, on Highway 70, there's one house that I think is being rented currently. There's one that's empty, vacant, and then there's two on Church Street that are currently
Yeah, the one on 70 is not
no.
rented, there's no
Right.
one in there.
Right.
And that is office.
Well, that's the other one that you mentioned.
Oh.
That's his office space.
Oh, gotcha.
So to speak. So it's a commercial use.
Gotcha.
I don't even think the one there on the corner is livable
No, unless you want,
at all.
yeah, no windows, no doors.
I think the one on the C1 that's on the west side, he recently demoed a house or two.
On the back side, he did, yes,
On the Church Street side.
yes.
Yeah. He did that when he was getting ready to, when Subway was getting ready to build. Any more discussion on these?
So when he does get ready to submit his plan for the comprehensive mixed-use project, is a traffic study going to be triggered with this because of the size or because of the zoning?
So the traffic impact study guide that you all are gonna talk about tonight, 5 acres is the trigger.
Yes.
And
this is 4.76.
Yeah. But if you remember, I mean, the planning commission can always request it.
Gotcha.
Well, and keep in mind, that's the traffic assessment, the light version.
Right.
I'm looking right now. It's very likely that a traffic impact study will be required.
Okay.
But keep in mind that the TIA, or the TA, the traffic assessments for now, for the rezoning part, we wouldn't have that when they come in with plans. That would be the traffic impact. But no, it's under 5 acres, so it wouldn't be an automatic.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the rezoning that's been requested contingent on the consolidation of all properties together, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion is passed. We'll have second reading and public hearings next month. Consider on first reading the amended ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance Article 3, Section 3.090, access control by adopting the traffic impact guides by reference. So that was, that's what we requested, and it went back before the planning commission, and now it's back with the amendment on it.
Yeah, so, and Jeff cleaned this up, and it looks great. We've consolidated subsections A, B, and C on that first and second page, so that if it's 5 acres, it triggers a traffic assessment. If it's under 5, it doesn't. It doesn't matter if you're on state highway or not, it's just 5 acres.
That's the direction y'all gave us. So this is first reading, we would have to have a second reading next month. No other change.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve on first reading the amended ordinance?
I make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second. Oh, sorry, second.
Okay, any more questions on this? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I wrote down Stephanie.
Okay. I thought she did.
Any opposed? All right, motion passed on first reading, and next month that will also have a second reading and a public hearing.
I would like to say this document, because I just returned from Alabama, and the council was looking at things like this, and they were very appreciative to be able to receive this from their bank. So your work is gonna go into work in Alabama.
We're not strangers to sharing.
Okay, the building permit report, I'll let Jeff do that.
Yes, ma'am. So for the month of December, we issued 4 building permits. They were all single-family homes, 2 in Bell Circle and 2 on Taylortown.
Is there a location that all current open permits are available for viewing?
We could get that for you. I don't, you talking about?
It's not like published on our website or anything like that.
No.
Do you mean all permits that have yet to obtain a CO?
Sounds good, yeah. Thank you. I'm a bicycle mechanic.
Just tell me what you want.
I would just like to know what's open and has not been completed. That, this is one end of it, and the other end is,
So you want a building permit has been issued, but no certificate of occupancy has been issued.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Anything else on the building permit?
Maybe a possibility of listing, what it's for, like you told us today, single family, but it doesn't say single family here, so it'd be nice to know.
Well, and we don't, it doesn't track that. You just know by the location what it is.
Oh.
Bell Forge is a single-family home development. It's in
Right.
townhouse.
I would assume a permit would be listed on the permit.
Let's pull a list and see what we get, see if we need to make any adjustments.
That's a strip club, I'm assuming.
We would code that a little different.
We've got an ordinance against that.
They go in industrial.
Yeah, industrial.
That's
zone.
big. But that would be in residential.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, our police department report,
It's a traffic study.
excuse me?
I think it says here, consider the traffic study.
We already did that. Yeah. You want to come up, Chris? Our police department report.
You look very nice.
Please don't pass a strip club.
We're gonna put it down there next to his property, call it the barn.
Outside the county, please.
Right down there by the Hornall Road.
I've got actually 2 sets of numbers on that. I've got for December, and I've got a total for the calendar year, if you guys want to hear that. Okay. Calls for service for December was 294. For the year, calendar year, 3,650. Traffic stops were 93. And for the year, 1,147. citations issued, 49 in December for a total of 633. 57 warnings, 488 total, 7 arrests with 202 total for the year. We had 0 DUIs in December with 15 total for the year, 3 narcotic charges for the month, and 37 for the year.
How does this compare to, say, 2022?
I did not pull 2022. I will say this, when I came in 2009, we were running about 1,200 calls a year, 1,500 calls a year, I believe, if I remember correctly. So they progressed in the last, but that would be expected. A lot of people moving in, times have changed. Lots of different actions towards kids.
I figured since you came in 2009, it'd be like a decline or something.
I wish it wasn't all it took. I've also spoke with all the council members except for Scott about some issues within the police department. And I would like to say that about that, I understand budgets and I understand how budgets work. I understand that we have to stay within those budgets. And I understand the importance of waiting until the new budget to try to make any changes. I've also brought about the, looking at new vehicles, at least replacing one the new budget year. And like I said, it's just something I would like for y'all to take into consideration. Scott and Mr. Glover, I don't mind speaking with you at some point about how I spoke with them about issues, just mainly concerning pay. And like I said, I did speak with some of you about the vehicles.
Are you gonna present all that in your budget then, when the mayor asks for that?
Yes, ma'am.
You have time, Keith?
This evening?
For me?
Sure. Is that it?
Any more questions? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, our fire department report.
Don't you have a uniform, too?
I did. I just work special occasions, like court stuff, funerals. We had 60 calls last month, 44 were inside the city, 11 were outside the city, 5 mutual aids, 3 were public assist that were inside the city, 37 medical calls that were inside the city, and 4 investigations that were inside the city, and 11 for these are outside the city limits, 11 total calls. 1 of them was a public assist, 8 were medical, and 2 were false alarms. And we had just mutual aid, we had 4 investigations, 4 brush fires, 1 investigation, a total of 5, which was 60. We had 799 calls for the year.
And how does that relate to last year?
To last year? We average increase in calls, so over the last 6 or 8 years, it usually increases 10 to 15 calls a year. Just across the board, kind of just a few percent as a general rule. It's pretty much stays the same for the last 15 or so years.
Just keeps getting busier.
It always is busier, but it's not as great as I would expect sometimes. And we think, you start running the calls, and you'll have a month where you're really, really busy, and say, well, this is going to be a record year. Then you have a month when you only do half of what you've done the year before. So it's kind of hard to predict, but when you average it all out, that's like the calls between 8 a.m. in the morning and 8 p.m. in the evening, and then from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning. We run the calls, and you think we run way more calls from that 8 o'clock in the evening to 8 o'clock in the morning, but then when you get done counting them up at the end of the year, they're usually within 3 or 4 calls of being the same. It just seems like more sometimes.
Is there anything that is changing, like one type of call is getting less and one type of call is getting more?
Medical calls are more. They increase every year. Exponentially.
Is there anything that decreases every year?
Not really. The fire calls usually stay relatively low. Back in the 80s, we had a lot more fire calls, which we didn't do the medical stuff back then. We had a lot more fire, but there were a lot more older homes that were built in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and we ran a lot more because most of the wiring, and they all had fireplaces with wood stoves. They had tons of fireplace calls for fireplace set house on fire. Those are they're almost non-existent anymore, where people have updated them to the point where they're not as big of a risk as they were back then. But no, nothing, other than the medical calls increasing, and that's it'll always increase. I know the county EMS as a whole, there are thousands of calls every year. And so, we're the second largest city in the county. So we're going to have the second most calls in the county. That's just a given. So.
You all assisted pretty heavily with the tornadoes too, didn't you?
We were there for a few hours on the initial response, and there weren't any serious injuries. There weren't any fatalities, and we didn't have to find anybody, thank goodness. And so, considering how bad it could have been, like Clarksville, we Clovitt Community fared really well considering all the possibilities. And it stayed just north of White Bluff. We've had them north of White Bluff, and we've had them south of White Bluff. Again, just as a crow flies, just a few hundred yards. So we dodged another bullet. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Do we have a court report?
No, ma'am, we don't. Our court clerk has been out sick, so she wasn't able to provide the report, but I'll get with her as soon as she comes back and I'll send it to you.
There's nothing under streets and sidewalks, parks and recreation. Anybody have any old business?
Well, I did bring up the last meeting about the size of our signs for zoning changes. And I don't know, supposedly it was gonna be brought up this meeting, so. I guess last we talked that you were gonna use all the current ones and then change to the bigger ones.
I'll take direction from you guys.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if the council wants to add that, there needs to be a motion and second to add that to the agenda, or it can be a request to be on the next agenda, however y'all want to handle that.
Well, I assumed it would be in this one, but I guess I was wrong. So,
Does anybody want to make a motion to add?
yes, I would like to make a motion to discuss and amend our dimensions on our zone change signs.
For this meeting or for next meeting?
The next meeting.
Okay.
Give me time to do some more research.
I'll second it if it needs a second.
So we're adding it to next month's agenda. Okay. Anything else under old business?
I have a motion and a second. Was you gonna?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, all in favor say aye, to adding that to next month's agenda.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it will be on next month's agenda.
Thank you.
I would like to add to next month's agenda then us talking about sprinkler systems for anything sharing a wall. An ordinance to mandate that.
Can we make it a discussion first before we draft you an ordinance?
We can.
Please.
Okay, we will make a discussion first. Thank you, friend.
So what am I doing with that?
Just
So
Jerry.
if he, sorry, is he making a motion?
Well, I mean, based upon what y'all done, and I appreciate the motion y'all did on the zoning side, but typically, Mayor Hayes has allowed anyone during a meeting to request something on next meetings. Y'all can do it as a motion or just a simple request, but Madam Chair, I leave it up to you for this meeting. you want a full motion to add something onto the agenda or just a request by a single councilman.
Well, since we just did that one by motion, we may as well be uniform.
There you go.
Okay, do I have a motion to add the discussion about sprinkler systems?
Sprinkler systems for anything with shared wall.
Before I vote on that, are you flexible with how many shared walls? Like, I didn't want to.
The point is to have the discussion.
Fair enough.
That's the point. So I would love to have that conversation. And I'd like to hear all reasonings and such and all the fun stuff.
So are you making that motion?
He did.
Okay.
Stephanie said.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that will be added next month, to discuss sprinkler systems for shared wall buildings. Anything else? New business, and we discussed this on Thursday, considering separate funds for specific uses like emergency funds or emergency services. I'm not.
That was my fault, so I can run with that if you want me to.
Well, I mean, I don't know what it was that we were gonna do.
So, and I need some advice. So, everybody here up in that town has talked to Chris. I've talked to several people about the different, basically we're going to vote to see whether or not we want to use this separate fund for different things. There's not a whole lot of desire to do that with the people I've talked to, some of the public, So my question, since we've talked to Chris, if, like, let's just say that we decided that we wanted, as a council, to give them a pay raise, would that be a motion, just like any other thing? And we would approve it, and then it would have to go in the budget? Is that how that would go? Like, if I put on the agenda, I want to discuss a pay raise for the police department, and then we voted yes, then it would have to be put into the budget at some point somehow?
So, and Melody, tell me how you would see this. Typically, I would see a motion, I think that would be fine, but it's going to have to be incorporated into a budget ordinance amendment. So it's kind of a two-step process there. And kind of the conversation we had on Thursday, is stay away from recurring expense, which I know that was something Councilman Worrell wanted a clearer definition on.
Right.
But if y'all decided right this moment to go buy a police car from general fund, you can.
Right.
That will have to go into a budget. I mean, anything y'all decide to do unilaterally as a council, as a one-off motion, is fine, in quotation, but it'll have to get cleaned up by Melody in a budget amendment down the road.
So what if you said, and I'm just curious, because I'm trying to, everybody knows I'm emergency services, that's my pet peeve. If we did vote on that, and we did approve it, and we did, for an example, say, for the next budget year, then we wouldn't have to amend the budget. But would it have to go into that budget?
No, I mean, you could make your thoughts known, you could pass a motion in support of something, but you're really going to be voting on the 2024, 2025 budget.
I got you.
That's where that would come in. And again, if we went through this earlier, well, not earlier this year, last year, if y'all wanted to amend the master budget ordinance, you could make a motion to do that, to add or delete items, but that gets into an area, I know you're looking for, where do I do this, right?
That's my question.
How do I make this happen? That's your question.
Because, can we discuss, since it's brought up in the police report, so technically it's on this agenda, can we talk about it now or no? Talk about what all of us know, the information that we've discussed with Chris. My concern is, budget's a difficult time because you only get to work with what you have. We all know this, the money, However, I do feel and me and Jeff have talked immensely on this subject. You know, we did the study to see how they landed salary-wise. And mathematically, you know, if you look at that, they land somewhere in the middle. The problem that I see is that with McEwen being so close and paying, in my opinion, substantially more, then if you lose your better officers, you know, I don't like that number. I mean, even though their average looks good, if you've got a community that's that close to us paying that much more, you know, it concerns me. If we just let it go to budget, I don't think it'll get through because I don't think there's going to be the money there probably to do it. So, and I'm not sure, you know, it's not a hugely popular idea that we do that on council because it is a budget item, but at the same time, if we wanted to vote on it, then we vote on it, and then it's the will of the council, and then it would have to be amended into the budget. Is that so?
It depends on when you're talking about the vote, ultimately. If you want it in the budget that will be passed for the fiscal year, that's one matter. If y'all vote right now to raise salaries, you have the power to do that. You're going to run out of money unless you change, and that's authorized money.
Right.
Unless you change the.
I get what you're saying, yeah.
And change the budget, because you went from a 12-month timetable to an 11.5-month timetable, so we've got to adjust the budget for that.
Okay.
Melody,
You're right.
okay.
It
I
has
want to
to be
make sure.
amended, yeah, it has to be amended.
So, and I'm trying to understand all this before I stick my foot in my mouth. So if let's just say that budget comes to us, which would be, I guess, what is that, about July-ish?
No, we get it about May.
May. And we want the raise in there, that would be the time to vote on it and say we want it to go in there.
Yeah, we'll use an arbitrary number, let's say it's $5.
Right.
Is the budget item that you're curious about, and you want it to be $7.
Okay.
You could make a motion to amend and see if the council agrees to make it $7.
Got you.
And that would typically be best on first reading, so that Melody and the mayor have time to adjust things, hopefully, so that when it comes to you at second reading. But it depends on what you're adjusting and how you're making that work. You don't want the budget to get so out of whack.
Well,
But when we receive budgets, they're not itemized, so we don't know how much has been allocated for salaries and how much has been allocated for equipment or supplies. We don't receive that, so we would have to receive that earlier to know.
You get a detailed budget,
But it's not broken down by the
Well, salary is a line item.
just a line item, yeah.
Per department.
Per department.
Yeah, it's a collective.
It's not like per officer,
Right.
per department.
And do we know, do we know that that's the full requested amount from the department heads, or is that the adjusted request for each?
that was one of the things that I've been studying on, and I don't know, because I've always seen city administration, city council. You know, one of the things that bugs me is that if, and I'm going to use me as an example, let's say that I'm over parks, and I don't ask for anything, and so in my budget, or E&D budget, then I see where they're getting $5,000. Well, you can't really blame that on city administration because it wasn't asked for. And so, and it's happened to me before because I'll say, well, you know, why don't we have more for this right here? And the answer I get is, well, because they didn't ask for anything. And I'm like, oh. So, you know, I would almost like to know what they asked for before we see the edited version. And I do know we have to have the edited version because you can't pay for everything. And that's, you know, and this is, you know, like I said, I've had numerous conversations since our last little powwow on Thursday. I don't think that it's, you know, I don't think that we're in a bad situation. I just would like, you know, if we do say, okay, we do want to give, say, for example, the police officers a pay raise, then the hard question comes, okay, well, where does that money come from? And there's where I worry, because if we don't want to do property taxes increases, then where does that money come from? And me and Jeff have discussed, what did we say, 3 or 4 in the past 20 years, property tax increases? 4. So we got 20 years with only 4 property tax increases, and that's our problem. And we need to, you can study into that if you would, I would really appreciate it. That's what we've gathered so far, and I think, you know, now we're looking and going, why do you want this much? Well, because we can do anything all these other years. If we had been baby stepping all these other years, we probably wouldn't have to have such an
But
increase.
you know, it gets readjusted when we have the reassessment for property value.
And
It
I'm
gets
not-
knocked back down.
I'm not a fan of the back down. You know, that's just me. I think, you know, because if you increase your property tax and then your property values go up, then I think we should leave that be, because we're just kicking ourselves. I mean, and I understand there's people that can't afford to pay that, I get that. But there are also programs for older people, you know, and I'll use my father as an example. Yes, he's 80 years old, but he can afford the property tax increase. So he's not, even though he's 80, it's not like it's going to hurt him. So he shouldn't qualify for these programs, but certain people should because it's hard on them. But I guess, you know,
It's not going back down on the assessment, it's just playing ping pong though.
I agree. I think, you know, I mean, and we do live in a very, you know, profitable, lucrative area. You know, you're going to pay, I mean, I would live in Williamson County if I could afford it, but I can't. And there's a reason for that, you know. I mean, it's expensive to live there, and it's going to be expensive to live here because it's going to be a very popular area. So, I'm hoping this, you know, brings a much broader conversation because I'm definitely, I mean, and I think, you know, Chris and everybody would agree, I think we're fine with waiting until our budget discussion to talk about this. But, you know, if we put it on council and if we vote it and it passes, where does that money come from? And that's the thing I'd like everybody to kind of think about between now and then, because if it does go through us and it does make it, then how we pay for it. So, you know.
Yeah, and just my opinion that once Chris gets his figures down, that's what we know he's asking for.
Correct.
I mean, he can give us that so that we know what's on there and what we're looking at for budget.
I mean, if I may, Madam Chair, make a suggestion, because I think this council is probably more engaged in the budget process than prior councils. And that's a good thing, and that's positive. But, you may want to continue to have discussions with your department heads and compare. Because we went over this Thursday, there's really only one thing about the budget that our charter addresses, and the mayor is in charge of the budget. He presents it to the council. And then y'all get to amend it if you feel like it, and then, you know, but you're not putting it together technically. And by our charter, the mayor puts it together to present to you. So that's a little bit of a constraint, I get it, but that's the way
Well,
the mayor is a non-voting member except for in ties.
So you're basically saying, like, and I've done this in the past, if you want to see the rough draft, go see your department heads and say, hey, can you show me?
And you can talk to the mayor about the budget beforehand too. I know she'll talk to you about it. And
Right.
in that capacity, you're allowed to talk about, hey, what's in the budget, what's not in the budget. You can't deliberate, but you can ask those very matter-of-fact questions, because it's going to come to you at some point.
Well, and
And going to the department heads is a great way to see what they're submitting if you would like to do that.
Now, according to MTAS recommends that the council be involved in the budgeting process prior to it being presented formally for it to be voted on. And that's coming from MTAS. So this is the first time I've heard in 10 years that, it's just the mayor gives you the budget and you vote on it or you change it.
So is that unique to our charter?
It's unusual and it's not in most charters. I mean, I agree with you. I think more involvement early on is a good thing. I'm just giving you that legal baseline of the mayor puts together the budget and gives it to you per the charter. And again, MTAS guidance is going to be pretty generalized, and that's not the case with most municipalities that have that provision. Now, can y'all go above and beyond that? Sure, and I think that's worthy of discussion. But point is, if you want to know more information, there are plenty of people to call to gather that. So when you see the presented budget, you can ask the questions of, hey, 90% of the requests went in here. Then you get into a conversation of how do we pay for it. And then don't forget from Thursday, and I'm going to get to recurring expenses in a second. If you wait till right now to buy certain things, not recurring expenses, but you want to buy some benches, you want to buy some cars, whatever it may be, you can choose to do that. You'll have to have a budget amendment. And keep in mind, when you do that, not in the formal budget process, but in the we're going to go spend some money process down the road, you're saying, man, I hope revenues cover this, or it's coming out of general fund. And that's back to the, how do I spend money out of the general fund? You have to do it separate, in between the master budget approval and any amendment. It has to be in between, because then you're gonna throw it out of balance, and it has to come back into balance, either through general fund or amendment.
So I'll throw Jeff a question. So this is one of the things I see that I would like to correct. So basically, if the budget comes before you guys, y'all sit there, you go through it, try to figure out how much money we got, blah, blah, blah. Let's say that they ask for a raise, and you say, can't, there's no money there, okay? Well, then, we don't, and we use property tax for an example, that's not the only way, but we don't raise property tax. So I can't be mad at you, because we haven't included any more funds for you to be able to approve the request. So, if the request comes here, and we as a body approve it, then we as a body have to figure out how to pay for it, whether it be property tax, selling real estate, whatever we decide to do. And so basically, let's just say that, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. So budget time comes, they ask for a cop car, Jeff looks at it, Mayor looks at it, he says, there's no money in there for a cop car, we don't have it. So when they bring us to us for first reading, I could say, well, I make a motion that we take the money out of general fund, buy this car. If they pass that, then we would amend that budget, showing that money moved over to buy the car. Would that be?
You would be making that motion as not part of the budget. I know that sounds strange.
Right.
You have to do it in August or October or January. And then, because that's how you get into general fund, is you buy non-recurring expense items, capital improvements, with that. So just for clarity, a recurring item, a recurring expense, and I went back and looked at the GAAFR GAFR rule. Basically, is there a reasonable expectation of this cost needing to be paid weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually? Well, if you go buy some office chairs for the office, there's no reasonable expectation that you're going to have to do that on some regular schedule. It's just until it's worn out. You know, we buy another dais, I don't know when, but this would not be a recurring use. It's a capital expense, new windows for the building. Salaries are absolutely going to be the recurring expense. Office supplies are typically going to be in that recurring expense category. And those are things you really, Melody, correct me if I'm wrong, you cannot use general fund money for recurring. That has to come from your revenues. Capital projects, capital expenses can come from general funds. So that's a really big dividing line in what you can and can't use. So let's say, for example, one year you had no property taxes and no sales taxes, right? You can't pay salaries. I mean, that's but you can go buy stuff in general fund, but you can't pay salaries. So that's one of the, I mean, there's nuance and exceptions in there, but that's the basic dividing line of what really sales tax and property tax and a few of the other things pay for versus the money in your, we use it as savings account, but the money in your savings account can buy things.
Mm-hmm. So, Carl, I'm going to put you on the spot. So, in your opinion, and this is where I'm trying to decipher what to really, wrap my brain around, but the budget process goes to city administration. And if they say, look guys, the funds aren't there to do what, you guys are wanting to do, so then it comes to us. And if we decide we really think this is important enough that we vote it in, like the pay raises, and we do that, then would you agree that it tasks us at that point to figure out how to pay for it?
Of course. But I would like more clear at that moment to say, hey, we just need X amount of dollars without what and why.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to say, okay, well, let's find the monies for that giant question mark number.
Right. But if it were, say, for an example, police raises.
Yeah, if you're saying, hey, I need X amount of dollars for this department's raises, I need X amount, that's where this number comes from that I'm asking for the raise for, that is presented differently. But if it's just, I need this number with a question, it's two very different. I think anybody would say, well, it's hard for me to approve a number with just, well, we need this versus, hey, I need, at least, I understand sometimes it can be very hard to get too itemized, I get that, but at least having some itemization to represent the bulk of the number for the requested increase.
So what happens to the interest money off that money that we've got in the account at the end of the day?
Well, most of it's gonna go toward, I think, I don't know for sure, Andrew, you may know, but the interest we made off the grant probably needs to go toward, we can't, fund something else, it has to go toward whatever we use that grant money for.
I haven't checked on that, and
I'm not
that would
real
make
sure
sense, but obviously, the general fund interest gain gets dumped back in the general fund.
Right.
Because you would
But if
divide that based on that percentage, right?
But if it's mingled together, how do you separate that? Because not all of that was grant money.
Yeah, it would be easy to separate it.
We can do that.
We can.
We know
how to
the
do
amount
it.
we grant.
Mhm.
We can figure that, but, either it all gets dumped in the general fund, or it has to stay in that tranche,
Exactly.
but.
So,
I'm sorry, go
going,
ahead.
and just based on our conversation, I understand that we're trying to solve a specific problem.
Right.
I ask you to give consideration to the message that sends to the other employees. And we have a process in place to identify this issue. A few years ago, we retained the services of Fred Biddle. Fred's done compensation analysis for the county and Dixon, many others. And we went through a process where we looked at each position within each department and did comparative, and that's how we adjusted everyone in the past. Now, if we're getting out of line, then perhaps we need to go through that process again.
Do you know what that costs, that analysis?
He's at this point basically on retainer, and we haven't gotten anything. I mean, it's for, do you know right off?
I can't, I'd have to look, I don't know.
It's
What about 8,000?
minimal compared to I think, the service. But again, I know we're trying to solve a problem.
Right.
But I would ask that we give consideration across the board.
So would it be fair to say that if this is what we want, we really want every position looked at?
It's gonna cause
Period.
problems.
Yes.
I mean, that's what we do or did prior to, and then we could
Right.
incorporate it into the budget and you see where it fits and how it works, because salary is one of those things, as Andrew said, I mean, a recurring expense, I mean, you're not just allocating that
Right.
money this year, you're allocating that money every year.
I'm not opposed to looking at everything, because unfortunately, as we all know, sometimes things change very quickly in our economy. Very quickly.
Could we do that before budget, if we went that route?
I would say yes.
Because, we want to do all of our city employees right. That's certainly my will. And I know how, again, I've GM'd plenty of businesses where economy changed quickly and salaries had to change quickly. Especially when, we all know what COVID did to employee bases. It was insane. So I'm not opposed to looking across the board. I think that would be only fair and only right by everybody.
And I'll add, a lot of jurisdictions around here are doing a comprehensive review of compensation because of the last couple of years' inflation rates.
Yep.
And so you look, typically you're gonna look at private and public comparisons, and almost every jurisdiction realizes, hey, we gotta bump things up a little bit. Some are different, everyone's gonna be unique, but, that analysis, Jeff, I don't think it takes like a year to do. It takes a few weeks, so,
No, we help pull.
Right, you have to pull the information together so they can look at it.
So what do we need to make that happen?
Well, I would say this council probably needs to make a motion to add another item to the agenda next month.
See, and that's what, like, you know, of course, we're talking about these specific funds. What I'm trying to do is open the dialogue. I'm not necessarily a fan of these either. I'm just, you know, I want to know if there's things that city administration or city council feels that we need, how do we get there? You know, that's the thing, because, you know, me and the mayor have many conversations, and she'll say, well, the money's not there. Okay, I understand that, but where do we find it? That's the next part of the question, and that's a very difficult part of the question that, you know, a lot of people don't want to talk about, because if there's no good answer, you know, and let's just say, I mean, Jeff's got a good example there. Let's say if the city employees need a raise across the board, where's that money come from? You know, because that's not general fund either. It's going to be reoccurring, and it's not in our spectrum of finances right now. So.
But if that's the will, if that's what everybody wants, then then we do, you know, somebody needs to make a motion to add that to next month's agenda and get it going, because they'll be working on budget soon.
Yeah, I definitely want to make a motion to add that.
I'll second.
Compensation overview.
Yeah. And then we'll go from there.
So have you guys reviewed the audit that we were given, was it in December's meeting that we?
Oh, can we have a vote real quick?
Yeah.
And then talk about,
Um,
or is this related to?
It's related to
Oh,
it.
sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's related to it because I feel like some of our residents have expressed, I think it is important for us to get a better grasp of the monthly financials and know where we're at any particular point. Because based on the audit, our net change in fund balance for the year ending June 30th, 2023, we added $190,983 to our general fund balance. So I understand that's not a huge chunk of change, but when you have those conversations with the mayor and she says, I'm sorry, we can't do that because the money's not there, there is a little bit of money there that, you know, could be allocated to salary increases.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about right there. Do we, you know, that figure that you just brought up, do we add that to general fund, or do we add that to our additional yearly expenses? Instead of chunking in that general fund, which I'm not a fan of, we utilize it for things that we, or city administration feels that we need.
Well, it still comes out of the general fund. It's just, I think I understand what you're saying, instead of it just being added to the fund balance.
Correct.
Like the rainy day fund. Do we tap into that? Because, you know, we took out a $100,000 loan, and I know that it was very low interest. And some of you are concerned about loans and the interest rates on those loans. But
I'm looking at an interest calculator right now.
I feel like if we had maybe a better idea at any given moment, maybe we didn't need to borrow that $100,000, because at the end of the year, we had $190,000. And even without that loan, we still would have had $90,000 more than what we estimated. And again, I know that's not a huge amount of money when you're looking at budgets that are over $2 million. But I think it's important that we keep a better eye on the finances.
We had that, you know, and I'm not saying the general fund doesn't need to grow. I would like for it to grow. However, if there's things that we feel that we need rather than adding to the general fund every year, then I think we need to spend that money on reoccurring expenses. And so there's where, you know, it's taken me a couple of 3 years to really understand the budget process a little bit better, you know, but I get it. I mean, if you're sitting in the mayor's seat, Jeff's seat, Melody's seat, you're trying to pass a budget based on what you know is solid numbers coming in. You know, if you get overzealous of that and you give everybody pay raises and then at the end of the year we don't have money, you know, I understand that. But I really feel that we need to, as a council, you know, back them up and say, no, we want these things, and we're going to make sure you get the money. This is what we're going to do, and if that doesn't work, we're going to try this. I just don't think we should just, I don't like running, you know, just year after year basically with the same pattern. That's what I'm saying. I think, you know, I would like to see us expand our horizons a little bit.
The reason I'm so zealous about interest rates, almost to comedic effect sometimes it seems, is because, I mean, just comparison 2020, I know we have at least $1 million in the account. But just between 2021 and 2023, that $1 million lost $121,000 of purchasing power. That's significant. So that's all I'm just trying to say is we need to figure out a way to compensate for that in such a way. So those are the reasons I'm so pounding the table about it, is because we need to be able to handle that for the town's sake, for the employees' sake, and so that's why I'm just trying to figure out a way. And then if we add on to that more negative interest because we're taking out loans, that we're just digging ourselves in the hole. And even though that general fund numerically, I mean, it's like saying we have 1 million pesos now. It's like, well, that's not worth a whole lot anymore, you know. So.
And I agree with you, and I do think from what Andrew said, and you as well, that y'all feel pretty confident that the fund that we're getting that pretty good, decent interest off of is fairly safe. I mean, it's like you said, if it crashes, then we're not the only city to go under.
We have worse problems in this country.
Yes, and so that being said, I would much rather, you know.
I'd like to utilize that more, honestly, because at least to help with purchasing power and to be able to maintain, you know, so that way if we need to continuously, because I anticipate because of inflation and the loss of the value of the dollar, we're going to have to more aggressively have to give out more raises and things like that just to help people keep same standard of life in our town. If nothing else, for the sake of the employees that work for the city, and then also for us to be able to maintain service.
Okay, well, we've got a motion to add this to next month's agenda, and we've got a second, to put out, I guess, to the company that does it for us, to look at all the salaries of all the employees and do a comparison. So we'll take a vote on that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that's added. All right. Is there anything else under new business?
The only other question I would have, you go ahead, you waited twice, you go ahead, I know.
You know, the question was posed earlier about where does that interest go of the local government investment pool? And the answer was, well, I guess it stays with the money, but why? Why does it do that? Why
I
can't
don't think we gave an answer. It was either that or it goes in general fund. We don't have an answer for you tonight.
Well, the way I look at it is, before we put it in that local government investment pool, it wasn't earning anything.
True.
And so there was no expectation that anything else besides the fund money was going to be there, or the general fund was going to be there. So the interest, by my calculations, is going to be close to $100,000 in a year's time. So that's, you know, we really ought to take a look at that and find out what can be done with that.
Yeah, I agree with Scott. If we don't have to leave it with that grant, then I would prefer we don't, because that would avoid a property tax increase alone.
But just keep in mind, though, that once we do what we're going to with that,
True.
once that money's gonna be gone.
That's what I'm curious about too. So who or when do we decide how much of the general fund can go into that? Is there a limit of what we can put in there from the general fund into that? Do y'all want to have a conversation about that? I would like to put that on the next agenda as far as how much of a percentage that we're safely willing to put into that once our grant money's gone.
But how quickly can you get your hands on it when
Yeah,
you need to
that's
pay
the thing.
bills?
Well, and that's going to be the question for you. How much do we need in the checkbook?
Right.
And then how much
You
can we use it
you said it
for?
was very liquid, that fund, yes.
In our last conversation, once we can get to it in here, wasn't it?
What, to the local
Local
government?
government.
Yeah, we can.
Because, I mean, I would like to take advantage of compounding interest if we could.
If I may, Madam Chair, that there are some investment policy laws that have been passed in the last few years, and I can't recall them off the top of my head. Can I at least update y'all next month on kind of,
That'd be lovely. Yeah.
just as a thing, and then y'all can decide what to do with it?
Yeah, we would like that.
Yeah, we can discuss
We
it
have to
at
be
our
very
work,
careful.
or at our work.
And that
session.
kind of goes back to my point earlier. When we initially voted on this, we were told that it was just the grant money, and then it ended up being the grant money and some of our general fund balance money. And we, as a council, did not set a certain amount to be transferred. So are we going to be made privy to that in the future? Are we going to have a say-so in how much is being transferred into that?
Well, whenever we did that, you know, I said 1.8 million, and I said grant, but I should have said grant and general fund, part of general fund balance. But I did say grant, you're right.
But what's the difference, which is which?
Well, the grant money is, was $1,083,000 something. I don't like to quote figures without it being here in front of me. But, and so after the auditor said that we need to put the money in an investment pool, that's when I went ahead and just completed the paid the $1.8 million.
So looking at it now, 1.1 was grant and, 700,000 was general fund.
So the actual number was $1,083,894.28.
Anything beyond that would be general fund money.
Exactly.
Gotcha. And I'm with you, I would love to know how much can we put in there, what are we allowed to do with that money, can we use it for recurring expenses, so we don't have to raise property tax? Those are the kind of things I'm trying to find.
Well, and if I may just push back a little, I get what y'all are getting at, I'm gonna push back a little bit. You have a CMFO who's gonna make those decisions. If y'all wanna put parameters on that, that is, I don't want y'all to be the financial director and, I want that clearly separated, but y'all are allowed to pass policy that says only up to or a minimum of, and let me just get those parameters for you to consider.
I don't necessarily think that because I certainly do not have the education Carl man does. When it comes to that, I'm just simply trying to, as a council member, know when I put my head on my pillow at night that I'm doing everything I can to make the best use of, and I'm not saying anybody's not, but I'm just simply trying to have.
In my opinion too, when we do it, rather than you do it, or you do it, it's on us.
Yeah.
So if it goes south, it's not you guys that, because we're the ones up here saying we want the extra things, we ought to be the ones up here saying this is how we're gonna try to do it.
And if
We
we're
put our name on
voting
stuff.
on it, we need to know what exactly we're voting on.
We don't,
Yeah.
It needs to be clear.
we don't do things anonymously, we put our name on it.
So do.
On a side note, because we had discussed any update on, and I know I'm going to be Andrew's least favorite person up here. We had spoken briefly about potential home rule overview on what that would look like and the pros and cons of that.
So I have asked one of my contacts at INTAS to give me a little bit more literature on it, and I was going to bring that to you at some point, in this, probably into Q1, probably getting into spring.
How dare you have Christmas?
So I will have an update for you on that, we're not there yet.
Sure.
Hasn't left the radar though.
Like Andrew said, a lot of these, we have to be so careful how we, like investments and, the interest, we'll have to find out what we can use that interest
That'll
money.
be definitely,
We'll find out, and we're in this interesting time where we're getting that.
We're learning together.
Y'all remember, really, 2020 and before, you couldn't get a CD at the bank for 0.5.
oh yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
and we may be back to that at some point.
Well, and I don't know if
That'll
it's
generate
the answer, but it's something other than property tax, which I'm sure a lot of people would like to hear, other options, and that's what I'm digging for too. I mean, I'm not against property tax, but if somebody can come up with something that works in exchange for that, perfect.
I just know that if we are coming to the citizens of White Bluff and we're saying, hey, look, we're going to ask for a property tax increase for X, Y, Z, but we have literally explored every avenue to maximize the town's dollar, whether it be through investments or looking at doing our own trash. In other words, we've tried everything and we've got to come for a property tax increase. I feel a whole lot better about doing that, saying I've looked at every avenue I know to look at, and I've tried to stretch our dollar as far as it'll go. And that's all I need, because I do know at some point you're going to have to ask for property tax, but I will feel a whole lot better doing it and know that I've exhausted everything else I can.
So we've got 3 things now that we're adding to next month's budget. I hope Jeff got that.
We don't want February.
If there is nothing else, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Scott, you want to do that?
I'd be happy.
I don't think about a motion.
Yeah, I can't do it.
That's even Tommy.
It is, or usually comes
Travis
down.
and Stephanie is second. All in favor, say aye. We are adjourned.
Stole your ability to make a motion.
Love you, you're very,
You have it in the newspaper. Man,
Thank you.